when was the last time that you did something so good that you lost track of time? At work. Every workplace needs spaces where people feel confident and competent, that they feel like they're doing their best work, that they feel like they are understood and connected to other people. How do we do that? It's like, well, for me, the science of play was a really natural lead-in, because really all we were asking was that people's nervous system weren't always operating at this kind of toxic high level that shuts off how we connect with other people, how we learn to change direction, how we learn to adapt. The starting point is, after you listen to this podcast, for the next 24 hours, notice, is there anything that gives you a little bit of joy?
If the word play makes you think, nope, I'm a grown-up with deadlines and a crunchy shoulder, you're not alone. And you, frankly, are exactly who should stick around, so don't go anywhere. Welcome to Late Bloomer Living, the podcast where we're all about shaking up our ideas about what it means to grow older. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your resident age agitator and play instigator. Around here, we believe midlife is the perfect time to play, to reinvent, and bloom like you mean it. Let's go. Most of us hear the word play and we picture kids, recess, arts and crafts, something that definitely requires more energy than we have on a regular Tuesday. But what if the thing that we write off as frivolous is actually one of the best tools that we have for creativity and resilience and feeling like ourselves again? What if the very thing that we've labeled childish is actually the secret to feeling more alive, more creative, and a whole lot less like a tired robot that's just running on reheated coffee? My guest today is Brandi Heather, and Brandi spent more than 20 years as a kinesiology and health sciences professor. She was the one who showed up with carts full of Play-Doh and plaster to teach serious subjects. She has described herself as the quirky one, or the oddball, I believe, the outlier, or the person who didn't quite fit the mold when it came to being in higher education. But instead of toning herself down, she followed that spark. And that has led her down a whole new path. Her work shows that adults need play just as much as kids, maybe even more. And the science backs her up. So if part of you is rolling your eyes, perfect. Stay with me. This conversation isn't about being silly. It's about remembering who you are when you stop performing adulthood for just a minute. Brandi, thank you so much for being with me today.
I am so excited for this conversation. Oh my gosh. Just in the intro, you have me already. I'm already captured.
Well, I'm super excited too. Okay, so before we dive into some of your background and all that, I'd love to ask you, what does play look like for you today in this season of your life?
I love that you say season of my life, because I also, for me, play right now is this really awesome space where I can throw on my headphones or turn up my tunes in my house and just disappear into music. So for me, this season of my life is about play that is all enrapturing. Like, the play for me it can sometimes be just me. And I think that that's changed in my life, where play for a long time was me and lots of other people at times. And I don't know if that was my perfect play space. And now I realize, well, I have two play spaces that are my favorite. One of them is just me and my headphones, and the other one is in front of 500 people on a stage. They're very opposite.
Absolutely. I can so relate to that. I used to be a theater performer, and love doing shows and stuff like that. But then there was like the after show part where you'd have to talk to people, and I'd be like, okay, can I not do this part? That would be good. And then I could go home and just.
Yes. And I think people assume, right, that when they hear play, they think, well, extrovert, right? She must love the constant hum of people. And to be honest, I love the constant hum of people from the stage. And then after
Mm,
that, I really have learned to take care of myself. And that's been the difference. So I used to stay in a place that, you know, for my nervous system, especially, would be very taxing. And now I realize, oh, I can do that. And then I need the quiet. So
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's recognizing that.
So when somebody asks what you do, how do you describe that?
Well, I always revert to my, my kids. What do my kids tell people? So my kids are older. They're like 23 and 18, but they used to tell people like, my mom plays for a living. And no one knew what that was. And so then
Right.
they had to add all these descriptors like, well, she does this and she does this. So what do I do for a living? I help people in individually and collectively really come back to this place of that where they feel confident and competent and joyful and alive. And I help them to find spaces where they can turn down all the things that turn that off. So it doesn't matter if it's a keynote, it doesn't matter if it's in coaching, it doesn't matter if it's in programs or training or workshops, it doesn't matter. The fundamental thing I do is help people turn down the noise so they can find play again.
Do you find that you're mostly doing that through companies and corporations these days? I mean, is that's what I understand to be your primary play
Yes,
space, we'll say.
it is.
Is it?
And it's corporate, it's corporate. And
Wow.
people don't, lots of people don't connect those two things.
No.
But if you think about, and by the end of today, no one will ever question it again. But if you think about it, organizations are asking people to be inspired, to be connected to the work they do. They're asking them to innovate, to come up with the next greatest, best thing all the time. And if that's what you need from people, no matter what your business is, then for me, the answer is, have you asked them how they play? And it's the opposite to putting someone in a high pressure training that says, by the end of today, you will know how this sales strategy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually want to be able to say to corporate, the one of the key things you're missing is that you don't understand the playful intelligence of the people that work for you. And it's
Is that a
very,
hard sell?
oh, it's hugely hard sell.
Right?
If anyone's listening and they think, what's the hardest thing to sell? Play is hard to sell in a corporate environment.
I'm
Um,
finding that it's a hard thing to talk about with other adults. I feel like it's an immediate like, oh, isn't she cute?
Nice, cute. Yeah,
Right?
isn't she cute? People used to ask me like, "What's your other job?" Like, no, this is my job. This is my work, and that's the part that's hard because you think about all the hard things there are to talk about these days. The fact that play comes up and makes people's whole body, because I watch it professionally, right? I watch it. I watch their whole body structure change. They lean back, their shoulders come up, they turn their heads down. So they have a very visceral,
Interesting,
people have
isn't
a very
it?
visceral response to the word. And I think that's why we have to talk about it. Like,
Mm,
we have to talk about it because
amen.
we
I'm a
have
convert,
not.
but yeah.
I know, but we have not. I think one of the questions for people is, when you hear that word, what is it in you that fears it? Like, what is that? Because now we can have a conversation.
I have a
Because
theory.
yeah, tell me, because I
I
want to
have a
know.
theory. I think that, you know, when we're babies and we're there with our parents and we're learning to speak or walk, it's like ma 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 ba 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 ba. It's
Yes.
a game, right? The walking is a game. The parents hold the hands. It's all the things. And then I don't know at what point this happens, but I think somewhere in school, somewhere where the kids are starting to have to perform, um,
Mhm.
really with all the well-meaningness in the world from our parents and teachers and things that want to prepare us, I think, for the big bad world, it all
Mhm.
turns into you need to sit, you need to listen, you need to learn, you need to produce. And it becomes this thing, and so suddenly play is almost, is it shameful? Is that what you're
The-
seeing in people?
it is shame. And
Yeah.
when you think about the things that we feel shame and how deep that emotion is, physically, mentally, emotionally, deep shame is,
Hmm.
then then that's what we need to address. Where does the shame start?
Yeah.
Because actually we're seeing in kids, right? By the time some of them are 5 and 6 years old, they know play isn't for the real world. They've done studies like children know that play isn't going to get them anywhere,
Ugh.
right?
And I think it gets
That
even
should,
worse when they're and it may be even younger than it was for us, but
yes.
for kids now. But I think about junior high is probably where it started to hit me from peers, where I
Mhm.
felt like, it was time to stop roller skating. That's my big,
Yes.
I just started
Yes.
doing it again, but I loved roller skating and I stopped. And I'm like,
Yes.
why? Oh, I think it's because it wasn't cool anymore. It wasn't,
Mhm.
all the things that I love to do, like pretend and all those things. I gave those up sometime around middle school or junior high, I think. That's when I really felt like, oh, I'm so not cool. I need to at least try to look like I belong
Right.
somehow.
And I think that's when the performance starts, right? So then
Yeah.
we start the performance, which is the performance is fit in, you know, connect with what other people are doing, mirror that. And then that's where acceptance and belonging will be, right? That's where it will be. And if you really take a look and you say, okay, that's a natural progression, right? We have peers around us. We want to be liked. We want to belong. And actually our whole lives, right? We want that deeply. Um, and so it's okay that there's some of that. But when you think about what you turned off in that moment, when you think about, okay, I turned off my imagination, I actually turned off a physical skill that my body really loved doing, which was probably a complete nervous system reset for my body as a teenager, right? When you were doing it, you were, right? You felt capable, your body, your nervous system's telling you, you're safe, you're in the right place. And all of a sudden you turn that off at a time when we really need to feel confident and connected. But the one thing you didn't say in there is that we stop wanting to feel silly. I don't want to be
Mhm.
silly
Yeah.
because there's very few people that can pull off silly. And
It's truth.
it's
Truth.
true.
Yeah.
Uh,
When
it
did you
take,
first realize
yeah,
that play wasn't just something that you enjoyed, but it was something, I'm guessing it's something you realized you needed.
yes.
Am I on
I,
target with that?
oh, you're totally on target with that.
When did
Um,
you realize that for yourself?
you know, I say to people, I grew up in play. Like I grew up in the home of an artist. I colored on the walls. I did those things. So inherently, I understood play, but I don't know, like most people, I didn't know how important it was until I thought I didn't have it anymore. And I think those are the moments. And because I've lived in that space, I've lived in the space where I have experienced what I thought was the end of not just play, but my livelihood and my whole world. So for me, it was as a person, as a woman living with depression and anxiety, I don't think I recognized that I had turned off play and imagination and all those things as really a survival. And so when you turn that off, And I tell this story that really, I mean, it's beyond imagination that I found play in a place where most people, can't even imagine. But for me, at the height of depression, and at the point where I had, doctors were saying, you will never work again. Like, you will not be able to be a teacher anymore.
Wow.
And you will have to stop working, because the depression and the anxiety you experience are so huge that you won't be able to do that anymore. And when I thought I had lost that, and then really felt like I'd lost everything, I end up in a hospital where one of the key elements of being at the hospital was that you had to go to, like, art, and you had to go do, you had to use your hands and work at something. And I think I really felt at that point in time, it was like, oh, well, I'm an artist. So I had, painted all my life. And so I thought, oh, well, this will be the place, right? Maybe I'll find a little bit of more like I'm better than everyone than joy. But that's actually where I found it again. Right. So at the height of losing almost everything in my life, I'm in a hospital, and they make me come back to paint. Right. And I tell the story was that, I go into what they see as a ceramic studio where we're supposed to paint objects, paint vases and all these different objects. And I think I'm going to be painting in art class and canvases and oil paints. And they're like, here's a set of paints, and, paint this vase. And I paint, I think, what's the hardest thing? Because I'm better than this, right? Like, I think at that point I thought, oh, I'll just show everyone I'm better. And, I take the hardest thing, I paint all the lines, I do everything perfectly. And then when it comes back, it's ordinary, right? I tell people, if you've ever done something on Pinterest and you thought, oh my gosh, mine is going to look just like that.
Mine
It comes
never looks
back
just
and
like that.
it never looks like that. But it was the process of realizing, oh, when it came back, I had tried everything. I tried my hardest. I'd done everything I possibly could. And it was still not good enough. And then spending 3
According to
weeks,
you, it wasn't good
according to
enough?
me,
Right.
right? So when
Right.
I looked at it, I thought, oh my gosh, like, I'd done my best. And, that wasn't good enough. And then I spent 3 weeks in therapy, right? In really taking a look at what was happening. And if you look at the show home that I had created in my life, right? I'm always good. Everything's always right. Everyone's always got a vision of Brandi as fun and on top of her game all the time and smart and intelligent. I realized, oh, it's just like that vase. Like, I had done almost the exact same thing. I tried to make it perfect and it wasn't. And then I was disappointed in me. And then 3 weeks later, I go back in. I take this crazy, ridiculous ceramic frog and I splash paint all over it, like every color you can imagine. I'm splashing this paint all over it. And all of a sudden it comes back and it's stunning. It comes back and it's so imperfect. And it's so, in all of my other worlds, I would have said even ugly. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, do you know how much fun it was to not worry about how perfect that needed to be? And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm missing. I've missed joy. I've missed doing something for the sake of doing it and not having it to be what everyone expected. Right. It was the most incredible, sensation for me. And then I wanted to do that. And then when I went back to teaching, it was funny because probably a year after I went back to teaching, someone said to me, there's something different, like something has changed. And I was like, well, what is it? They're like, you're in play, right? I want to be in your classroom. I can't wait to be in your classroom. I can't wait to spend time with you. There's something about this change that's really important. And for me, it was like, oh, yeah. And so when you say, when did I know? I think I knew in that moment that I couldn't continue to run this perfectionistic performance show home that I was living in. And that when tried to stop doing that, then play, my imagination, how I saw people, how I saw myself, what I could come up with, how I lived my life, how I was with my kids, how I was in my teaching life. All of those things changed. And not overnight. Like, I think people think they go from no play to all the play,
No.
that it's a straight line.
I personally can say
It's
no. Like,
not. And it's not that.
no. In fact, I think for me, the reason I'm doing this is because the reason I'm in a personal inquiry around play. I mean, the reason I wanted you today is because I feel like you are what I see as like a play expert, and I am
Yes.
not a play expert. I am like looking to how can I incorporate more play in my life, and not just play like the way you'd think about it, to go take time to play, to do something that is quote unquote play, but to have it be, when I'm working, am I playful? Am I thinking about things with some curiosity and experimentation towards my work, and looking at it that way, or am I just grinding to get the next thing done?
Mm,
And I struggle with that. And I'm doing stuff I love. I'm doing a podcast and I'm a photographer. I love
yeah.
it. But
Yes.
still, I grind at getting
Hmm.
things done. So it's just really interesting. When you were teaching, I mean, you were teaching kinesiology, am I
Hmm.
right?
So
Right?
yeah, kinesiology and sport. And my area of expertise was actually disability sport recreation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You were incorporating like play in that work. Was that from the beginning? Was that like a natural instinct for you, or was there an inspiration that you drew on at some point? How did you tap into that?
Well, it's funny because when you look at, I mean, my main goal was to make sure that every person had access to, movement and play experiences and sport experiences. That was the fundamental piece. And what we would ask people to do all the time was imagine something different, to be creative, like hugely creative. Accessibility is about looking at something differently and being able to say, oh, well, we could do this or we could do this. Thousands of options have to be in front of you all the time. And for me, that's where the play entered. It was like, we can't come up with solutions if we're not in play. Like, if we're always scared of making a mistake, we'll never build that ramp. We'll never create a programming in which people feel like they're exactly where they belong. We can't do that out of play. And so I was having people play with ideas long before I had studied, before I had looked into the therapeutic side of play. That was a key element of my teaching. Was
So kind of it was like instinctual for
It
you
was
in a way, it
instinctual
sounds
for
like.
me. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And
Maybe because you grew up in
yeah,
that artistic space where you were allowed to draw on the walls and all that.
maybe, maybe.
Did it ever
And
feel
yeah.
risky to show up differently in an academic space? And
Oh my gosh. Yes. You when I first got hired, I always say I was in a hallway with biomechanists and physiologists and high level sport coaches, and I was just the corner office where people would come if they needed plaster or play-doh or a clothespin. But I taught the communication, the social science, the how are we showing up as human beings and humanity in this world of sport and high performance. And so, yeah, it was down the hallway with people who were, at I would have said, way out of my league. Somebody hired me to come in and add the human element, and that's what I did. And it was not in the beginning. I I would have done anything to be the middle line person who taught, the hard science, but it wasn't my background, and it certainly wasn't who I was. And so, yeah, when I started out, I very much wanted, like, I say to people, I wanted the really rigid academic. That's how I wanted to look. I was 24 years old when I started teaching in a college. And I thought I needed all these hardline academic sides. And when I tried to do that, I was very bad at it. Like anyone who was in my classes for the first 3 years, I I will have tortured by trying to be something I wasn't. uh, but yeah, so I think it did come very naturally to me when I let it. When I let it, that's
Yeah.
probably the best way.
Yeah.
When I let it.
When did you realize you were onto something that was actually working?
You know, I don't know if I knew how to describe it at the time. But we had created at the college, we had created a program on Saturday mornings for children and their families, which was a movement and play program for kids living with disabilities. And my students were part of it. We created it together. I had a couple of moms who trusted me enough to, to bring their kids. And all we did was try to set up a space where kids felt like they could come and move and play in whatever way that looked like. And the thing that was fundamental to me was we created this space for kids. And then all of a sudden, this magic thing happened, which was everyone who walked in the door, didn't matter what their age was. Parents would take off their personas of having to have everything in place all the time and look like the good parent. They kind of left it outside the door. And then all of a sudden, professionals want to bring their kids to this space. Like people were asking to bring kids to this space, like physiotherapists and occupational therapists. Can we just come on Saturday morning? We don't know what it is. And when I finally figured out, oh, it's play. This is play. That's why we built this play space for kids. But then we took off all the expectations of being the perfect parent and always having everything in line and being the perfect teacher and being the perfect student. And it was like we had drawn this invisible magic line. And what happened there was unreal. Like people would walk in and they'd be like, what is happening? Like kids that didn't feel very capable every day were setting up ball stations and making their own games. And all of a sudden this enormous potential started to happen and people wanted to come see it. It was something else.
Wow.
And that's when I knew there's something here we're not understanding enough and it needs to spread. Whatever this is,
Yeah.
it needs to happen in more places.
So now you certainly have gone beyond that world and you're taking this to businesses,
Mhm.
which I personally think desperately need it. But what what made that shift happen?
Well, when you take a look at play, and again, you said something you're like, I'm trying to in the grind, I'm trying to find some playful moments. And I think what I recognized was that so many people, it doesn't matter what we were doing for a living, so many people and organizations are really struggling with this sense of, how do we stay resilient and healthy and yet innovative and leading edge? And to me, the answer was, well, we just need to recreate how people can feel at their best. And what does that look like? And so that was the first idea, really, was we started with kids and we understood, oh, okay, we can create spaces where kids feel confident and competent and connected to one another and they work together better. Wow, every workplace needs spaces where people feel confident and competent, that they feel like they're doing their best work, that they feel like they are understood and connected to other people. How do we do that? It's like, well, for me, the science of play was a really natural lead in because really all we were asking was that people's nervous system weren't always operating at this kind of toxic high level that shuts off how we connect with other people, how we learn to change direction, how we learn to adapt. So, what if we could bring in something that all of a sudden, in a single day, just for a moment, we could see what it looks like when people are at their best? What would that look like? And that's what I set out to create.
What does it look
It's,
like when you're in the room and that's happening in a business?
I wish I could capture it. I wish I could capture the shift because I've walked into very high level C-suite organizations, at the highest level, where someone has said, you know what, I think we need this. It's about resilience. It's about, it's about innovation. Let's just try. And everyone in the room, like, I know you can't see me on the podcast, but arms crossed and
Oh,
shoulders up,
I can totally
right? Like,
picture it because there
they're
I can
so,
read people's minds. I'm putting
yes.
myself in their seat right now, and they're going, "Oh boy, here's another HR initiative that I
Oh,
have to do, and they're gonna put me through some trust falls, and they're gonna do what else are we gonna do? We're gonna play some sorts of games that are going to be so uncomfortable for me, and I'm just like cross. I can.
yes.
Is that what you're
Oh,
facing
yes.
when you go in?
Yes. Which, so some people are like, why are you doing this? That's like, it must feel awful on my side. And it's like, you know what? Now that I've done it enough times, two things. Number one, lots of people have stopped saying, this is going to be silly or it's going to be whatever. They've actually come in and looked at the results and said, okay, we want the results. What does it take to get there?
Oh, okay.
So
So tell me
that's
about
the
the
switch.
results. Let's
Okay.
go to a different spot. Let's go backwards
Okay.
and
So go
work
backwards.
from the results backwards to how do you what are the
Yeah.
results? What are you seeing?
So what we see, and you say, like, what do you see in the room? Well, I
Yeah.
see this thawing. It's like watching ice cubes. So everyone thaws. And number one, because we walk into, even though play, and just so you know, many times I have to take play out of the titles so people won't take a day off.
I
So
bet. I bet.
that's
Hmm.
step one, right?
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
so what I see in the room and what we've shown is that in a day or a week, however long I spend with them, yeah, it's like ice cubes. They unthaw, they go through the process that I walk them through, which is to really look at very natural ways that we do things all the time. And then I connect it to play. So at the end of the day, everyone leaves with this sense of play is not what I imagined. And this is how I'm going to use it because this is how I play. And what we see is it absolutely changes the conversations in the hallway. It creates a shared language that is safe to have. So when we are not all on the same page, when we don't know what's coming next and we start to act in uncertainty and we start to act in stress, can we look back and say, oh, part of the thing that I need right now is that thing that we learned with Brandi. So people all of a sudden have this brand new coping mechanism that doesn't feel like, you know, it doesn't feel HR driven, like you must do these three things. It feels like something they created themselves. And that's what happens. So what do we see? We people see people stay in organizations longer. We see people work to change their job descriptions so that they can be more efficient. Right? We see organizational efficiencies when people
Okay,
are all of a
I'm
sudden
not
aligned to
sure I
that.
get that. I'm not sure I get
Okay.
that. So when they're
Okay.
changing their job descriptions, what does that
Okay.
look
So
like?
one of the organizations I worked with, when we went in and did the, understanding their kind of playful intelligence, one of the things that we ended up at the end of the day was to come back and they said, you know what? There are 12 people in this room who are out of alignment with what their kind of play strategy is. So I'll give you an example. One of the executive assistants said her play, the thing that made her feel like most confident, competent, was when the reports would come to her desk and she would actually be able to put them all in order and then be able to complete a report. She loved it. She loved the organization of it. She got immersed in it. Like time would pass. She wouldn't even know how long she'd been doing it for.
That's fascinating to me because that is like I would hate that.
Anti-play, right?
Yes.
But what we found out by the end of the
Amazing.
day was like, she was like, I love that process. Like when you hand me the color coded files on my desk, lights me up. I could do it all day long. And
I
the
love
three
it.
people she was working with said to her, I try not to put those on your desk because I think it's exactly what you just said. I think that's a horrible job.
Right.
So I'm actually trying to take it away from you because it's not my play. It's not where I would find joy. So I'm taking it away from you. You're craving it. We're not talking about that. And all of a sudden, like the organizational efficiency changes
Ah.
because what we find out is the things that we're not talking about. What are the things that you would do in your work where you're like, I could do that all day. If that was my only job, I do it all day. And people start to say, you know what? Coming in the morning and putting the pens in order on my desk, having my desk totally cleared off, taking 10 minutes to clear my desk off, that's my play. That's that's how I play. Strategic planning, not my play personally, but some people, it's like that's where they feel the most alive.
I
And
have a
we're
friend who
turning,
is in the exactly the right
right?
job. That's her talent, that's her interest. She is like when it comes to play types, I'm talking about Stuart Brown's work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
She is the what is it? The organizer,
yeah,
the
yeah,
she loves to host a party, bring things together. She loves strategy. Like I can totally, yeah. It's amazing,
right?
right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
so what people come in with and what they leave with, like sometimes they literally change the way they work. They change the way they work. And what I've, heard time and time again, and now we're in the process of how do we measure it? Because what I see in the room is people who can be in crisis, like are not sure what's going to happen next week and leave the room with a sense of like we're going to be okay because we know these things differently than when we showed up. But when you talk about Stuart Brown's play, personalities,
Yeah, maybe we
when you,
should talk about that a little bit
yeah.
more because I just kind of referenced it but didn't explain it.
So, Stuart Brown breaks it into 8 play personalities. And so, for example, you said, yeah, this person I know loves to organize. So, in my assessment of play, my playful intelligence piece, part of it is Stuart Brown's work, which says that actually we have a natural play style, a natural play nature. So we really dig into a combination of Stuart's work, which is like, are you a builder? Are you an explorer? Are you a storyteller? Do you need to move in order to do your work? And so when we start to look at that and then what I call their playful intelligence, we bring those two things together and all of a sudden you start to see people look at themselves and their work differently. And then I'll give you an example. So many people's play is social, right? Many people are social players that it drives, grounding, it drives, their motivation, it drives their passion, but it also drives their health, right? They need to be around people. It's the person who always pops into your office on the way. Sometimes they're doing that because their play needs somewhere to go.
Mm.
And if we understood that more about people whose play is social, they need to be social. And then most of the day in their work, they are disconnected from people. Then what I like to show them is even if your work is the opposite of your play, then when you aren't working, you need to resettle your nervous system and be in that social space. And then, I think we understand the people who are, creative and visionary all the time, right? Like that's their play. Their play is always to have a new idea, and that's their play. But how many people who have boundless imaginations and lots of ideas are told to stay small and quiet?
Right.
And how many people who are very organized and love to be organized are told it's too strict? It's too like no one can move in it. So I think we're often, when we come back to shame, I think we're often shamed for the ways that we play. And so we turn it
Mm.
off.
Mm.
So if I'm always organized and I love things to come in color coding and I love things to have, be settled in all my accounts and I love a spreadsheet. Some people might never see that as my play, but it gives me joy. And when I start to identify that, then I realize, oh, I need to do more things in my world that align with my play style. Like if I'm a builder, I probably need to be building something. right?
And so then businesses, if they bring you in
Yeah.
and they start to discover this about the people that are working for them, is it often driven by the boss to say, okay, let's rethink this, or do they say, come to me and let's rethink what you're doing, or does that happen?
That's a good question. That's a good question. To be honest, like if we spend the day together, I like to actually have those things almost solidified before we leave the room. So, for example, I was working with a large organization last week who are, working through a major takeover in their organization. They, have a massive change, lots of
Got to be
uncertainty,
stressful. Yeah.
right?
Wow. Yeah.
So they've had another major organization come in, change the rules, change the whole, process. And this team really feels like they already had it kind of figured out. And so they're trying to fit what they're good at into this brand new system of fear and uncertainty, really. And so when they brought me in before the strategic planning. So they said we need to be in a better space before we go into our strategic planning because we're struggling. And so at
Good
the
on
end of
them
it,
for
oh
recognizing
my
that.
gosh.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I second that because, how many times do we just say, okay, well, tough it out. That's a really crappy circumstance. Sit in the fear and then feel fearful all the time. And we know what that does to a business. We often don't recognize it or do anything about it. But fear is the greatest driver of absenteeism, of conflict, of
And some leaders choose to
and
lead
they
through
choose
fear.
to leave through fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, how long do you want that to be a part of your existence? And when people stop saying, I can't have the fear as part of my existence anymore, that's when they reach out to people like me. And they
Wow.
say, before we're going to have 3 days of strategy where we're all struggling, can you help us be in a place where we're ready for that? And that's what I do. So by the end of the day, before they go into their strategic meetings, they all have a very clear understanding of, I say it's play, but again, they have a better understanding of how they can communicate with each other. One of the key elements of the initiatives that I do with organizations is that we take a look at what uncertainty is doing to them and how uncertainty affects how they treat each other, how they're treating their clients, what their customer experience looks like. And we
Mm.
do that in a way that is non-threatening. And I use play as the process to find out the hard answers. Right.
Wow. I'm amazed that they are aware enough to bring you in the first place
Yes.
and then open to that sort of approach. That really blows my mind
Mhm.
and gives me hope. What
Yes.
if more adults allowed themselves to play? Like I let me back up for a minute. When I feel like when people go to work, there's a part of them that they bring to work, and then there's the other part that gets like stuffed down or left left in the car or whatever, you know.
Yes.
And I just have to wonder, wow, I mean that's where you are for so much of your life. That's where your time is spent for most people with a full-time job, right?
Yes.
It's crazy. What So I guess I have two questions. On a personal level, if adults allowed themselves to play, how do you think that would change our relationships, our parenting, and our communities? And if we were allowed to bring our playfulness to our work life, how would
Mhm.
that change things? It's a lot. That's a big question. There's a lot
It's,
in there.
you know what? It is a big question, but like I really like fundamental and the science will back me up. So it's not just my opinion where I'm just floating up there saying, you know, if you play, everything's good. We actually know that if people learned how to find their kind of natural playful nature again, that we would connect better to people. That be our kids, be our community, to be the people that we work with alongside of every day. That some of the great challenges that are in front of us we would find better, more diverse solutions to those problems that many times we are walking in. And whether this is parenting and you're like, I don't know what to do next, or you're in a business where you've just been acquired by a major organization, you need to find solutions fast. No one finds solutions fast in fear. As parents, right? If we're always scared we're doing it wrong or comparing ourselves to other people, it's very hard for us to think of how much potential is in our children and in ourselves. And the same thing at work. If we are constantly in a space where we are afraid, where we perform every day, and then we go home and we have nothing left, we come back and we do it all again for 8 hours a day, like it's changing the health of our society to not understand this. People who have fun at work stay 2 times longer in the work that they do. They have fewer absences. They are sick less often. Like, these aren't minor things.
And that's
like,
good for the bottom line, right?
It's
what is
100% in your bottom line.
Yeah.
Right.
When you said this is like not just your opinion, but it's the science, can you just
Mm-hmm.
give me a couple of scientific points
Sure.
to draw on there?
So, okay, today's businesses need to be more adaptable. We actually see a direct connection between people being able to be creative and feel like their creativity is supported and the bottom line of organizations. So
there's been studies to show those correlations
over and over again.
Really?
Like,
wow.
We see that the problem is that we know that creativity actually is directly connected to our bottom line, but we don't know how to find it in people. And I think that's the issue. And so I give this example. Google can show over and over again that when they created playful spaces in their organization, that their profits improved, that they retain people longer, that their retention was better, their adaptability, their ability to change in a moment's notice. All those things happen, which was great. But when Google put that out, they said, we included slides in these pods, all of these environmental things that we changed in the office. And so people thought at the time, well, if we add a ping pong table and a foosball table and we have Fridays, Sunday socials, like we have ice cream socials, that it will have the same effect.
Right.
And
But
that was
that's not taken
never
into
true.
account is the different types of play that people actually like, right? Not
Yes.
everybody wants to play foosball. Not everybody
Right.
wants to go to the social hour. For some people, that's going to be like a hard pass.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. And so we stopped asking people and started assuming there were simple solutions to this. You need to go back to the science of what is it that changes in people's nervous system, right? So when we are operating all the time in crisis mode, we're always in fight, flight, freeze all the time. We can't play there. Like, we can't imagine. It's very hard for us to connect with other people. If we're constantly looking over our shoulder, waiting for what's next, then we're not thinking about what's possible. And so my job is to come in and to help people understand fundamentally who are the people, so that the things that you want that create profit for your organization, that we're putting it in the right place. The person who wants people who want the very structured work, they want it to be structured. Their play is very logical. It's very strategic. That's their play. If you understood it a little bit, you would use it to the fullest potential. But we're not, because we haven't figured it out.
Thinking as if I were a CEO of a business, and I'm thinking, how can I possibly accommodate all these different needs? How
Yes.
It feels a little overwhelming.
And I think that's the piece, is that I help people find it in themselves without the expectation that the workplace is going to do it for them. I think it can be overwhelming if you think, well, I'm going to have all these singular touch points with people and understand how they play. And I have 1,000 people in my organization and I'm never going to do that. Right. So if you take 1,000 people and you show them all that they actually are in charge, they actually can control some of these factors, then it's not the CEO's job to find your play. It's your job. And I'm going to come back to a really simple question. And it's the one that changes how people see things, which is, when was the last time that you did something so good that you lost track of time at work?
At work. It's like playing that game. What and adding in bed at the
Yeah,
end of it.
in bed. Yeah, like exactly. It's exactly like that game. Um, and then people I work with will say nothing. There's nothing in my day that makes me feel that good. And then I say, take 24 hours. See if there's anything that you enjoy in the work that you do. Because I work with organizations where people come and they say, I don't like anything I do. I have to. And I'm talking about frontline workers in healthcare, talking about people who are taking care of people for a living, who can't find any joy in their day.
Oh, that's hard. Wow.
Right. And then
Yeah.
you say to them, what's one thing? And they're like, well, one thing is, when I go into Mrs. Brown's room and she has a smile on her face, I feel good for 5 seconds. Amazing. Tomorrow, let's find 10 seconds. And what we do is we set people up to start to notice, not to schedule it.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. I love that you said that. I, can I ask you then, you just triggered something for me. There's a little exercise that I put myself through on days when well, I try to do it as often as I can, but it's particularly good at regulating my nervous system when I'm anxious, is to
Mm-hmm.
just start noticing, to literally say, I'm noticing there's a plant there. I'm noticing the clock. I'm noticing the blanket I like on the side of the couch. I'm noticing, and I start to get grounded. And they're also, what that starts to do is I start to just kind of go, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm here right now. Or maybe I'll say, I'm noticing that looking at that stresses me out, whatever.
Yes.
And then I'll think, oh, isn't that interesting that I'm having that response to that thing? And so suddenly curiosity comes in, and the noticing and the curiosity somehow is like this pathway into noticing that I'm actually okay right now. There's no saber-toothed tiger behind me getting ready to chomp
Yes.
on me.
Yep.
And then I start to maybe even notice things that I'm appreciating. And it's like this really interesting phenomena. I don't know why I felt the need to go into that. I may have
No,
thrown you
but
off track.
not at all. That's exactly what I'm asking people to do. So I'm asking them to notice. I'm not, I think people think at the end of the day, I'm going to ask them to, find out what their play is and do it for 30 minutes a day. Oh my gosh, if you found your play and you did it for 30 minutes a day, that's amazing, but it's not a starting point. The starting point is, after you listen to this podcast, for the next 24 hours, notice, is there anything that gives you a little bit of joy? Is there something that makes you, yes, like you, when you're like, I noticed that plant, I'm noticing the orange table. Is there anything that gets us back to that regulated state? And what people start to do is, when they start to say, okay, I'm going to take Brandi's little challenge, they start to see the world for just a moment differently. They notice the kid that pops out in the grocery store, pops out behind the aisle and is like, hi, or plays peekaboo. They start to notice the crunch of the leaves under their feet. They start to notice, there are times in my day where I feel like I'm in the right place. And it might be fleeting, it might be 10 seconds. But if I start to notice, there's 20 seconds there, and then there's a minute, and then there's the intention of changing it, right? Of finding it.
Mm.
And I think that's what I give people. So in a day, they get to see what it is, where it is, and then I help them to notice it more often. And when they have that lens, it changes how they work together, changes how they take care of themselves. It changes the way they see their world. And yeah, it's directly connected to their nervous system, like a big, huge exhale, right? So if you didn't know it was there, I show you it's there.
That's perfection. I think that is exactly the right note to go out on. How can people find you, your book also? Can
Yes.
you give us a little how to get in
Yeah,
touch with
I
Brandi
sure
session
can.
here?
So, yeah, absolutely. So, my book is called Return to Play Rebuilding Resilience, Risk, and Reconnection. You can find it on Amazon anywhere. You can also find me at my website, which is www.brandywithaniheather.com. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on Instagram. I'm sitting there on Instagram and I'm in LinkedIn. And then if you see, the expert of science of play at work, then you'll know it's me. And yeah, please stay connected on all of those channels for us, for sure.
I'm so thrilled that in doing my little deep dive research into play, I found you and want to stay in touch for sure. Thank you
Oh,
for this
yes, please.
conversation today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank
Tremendous.
you.
And for you watching and listening, if today's conversation made you think, okay, maybe there's something to this whole play thing, come and check out my play shop. It's a simple 1 hour self-paced experience that helps you shift your energy. You can join the wait list at latebloomerliving.com/play, and you'll be the first to know when the next play shop is coming open. So thank you for listening. And remember, you are never too old to play. Until next time, keep experimenting, keep following your sparks, and bloom like you mean it.